All right. All right, next up is Don Davies from the Hill Country Alliance in Texas, who will be talking about the LightSound Project. I have to make sure I get the right one because these are kind of messed up. There we go. And if it doesn't go by itself, we force it. There we go. I don't know. Sorry. I'll have to check.
All right. Well, I'm so tickled. I'm so honored to be here. If you know anything about this project, you've probably never seen my name. I'm not pictured in the slide of the team. I am really just a devout groupie in a sense. I'm thinking about trying to push for like bright tones as sort of a groupie for light sound. I have been an Eclipse educator and have worked with teams across the Texas Hill Country for the past 3.5 years. And I got involved through circuitous groups. This is a personal interest of me as well because I did have a parent who is blind. So I really took a liking to this project and I've apparently now been inducted. They say, you know, one of us. But this is the team. So Alison Birla is out of the Astrophysics Center, Harvard and Smithsonian, along with her partner Soleil, who is out of the University of Arizona. They are actually both presenting tomorrow in New York, which is why you have me. Daniel and Elliot are also involved in the Center for Astrophysics at Harvard Smithsonian, and Wanda Diaz-Merced was one of the initial partners that helped to develop this device. She is actually blind, visually impaired, so this has been a huge team that has been operating on this since well before 2017. So to give you an idea, and I do have 2 examples of these devices and can show you how to play with them later on after the session. But what the device does is it sonifies the light levels. So it literally makes it possible for the blind and visually impaired to experience the eclipse. It is all open source technology. It is about, on average, maybe about $50 in parts to assemble. Even the case data is online to use to develop. The original design was utilizing a 9-volt battery. You'll see it's transitioned to a much more technologically advanced device. This takes about 2.5 hours if you're a moderately decent solderer like I am. So this wired device utilized a Flora microcontroller board, a MIDI board. Like I said, it was powered by a 9-volt battery. After the 2017 Eclipse, they upgraded a little bit better. It's about 5 or 6 minutes to assemble, which is tremendously fast. It does now use a rechargeable lithium-ion battery, and it literally just requires a few little dots of solder as compared to the previous device. And it can be connected to a set of speakers or to headphones. So depending on what kind of environment, what kind of group of folks are participating in utilizing this, it's very diverse. And give you an idea of the sound. See if that's, is the audio connected? Oh, there we go. So the sound corresponds to the different levels of light. So direct sunlight, bright light is a very high-pitched flute. And it drops down to the mid-light, equivalent of sort of indoor light, is a clarinet level. And then when it goes into dim light or darkness during totality, you get that sound of clicking and so forth. So to put this together involved a multitude of workshops, starting as far back as 2020. They have gone through, I think it's, 7, 8, 9 workshops to construct in total of about 900 plus devices for this most recent set of eclipses, and they've gotten over 2,600 requests. So a lot of folks got devices, a lot of folks unfortunately were left out of this, but the workshops were fantastic because it pulled in people of all kinds, all backgrounds. You didn't have to have the skill of soldering to do it, so you could learn how on site, you could learn circuitry skills. Folks like Greg Mace from UT Austin, who actually participated in the workshop that was part of AAS in 2020, went on to teach workshops at UT Austin, where I wound up being, and I actually then taught a workshop earlier this year before the Eclipse. And in fact, let's see, the lower left-hand corner is actually my son who participated in that workshop. We actually had a large number of children show up. He's 12. slightly competitive. He wanted to make sure he just made more than mom. So I think in that 6-hour period, he managed to make 8 devices on his own, having had no prior soldering, wiring experience whatsoever. I think our youngest participant was 9 years old, and she was a rock star at it. Like I said, they do take a little bit of time to build, so for fun, I did a high-speed version of it. And it was fantastic because, you really got to learn the nuts and bolts of the circuitry, the nuts and bolts of how these were developed and designed. And Soleil was definitely one of the key components with regards to developing the program and the software for it. So I got to learn a lot about that backside too, because then I had to take home some devices and learn how to program them, and they don't always like Macs. But again, just a really great opportunity to engage with folks of all different backgrounds and skill sets to put together this device. And of course, these devices were then, transferred to outreach opportunities. So going into schools, going into, preparation for getting folks educated about the upcoming eclipses, about the annular eclipse. These were present across the country as they got distributed and were donated. So in 2017, it started with just 3 devices. So they had a device in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where Allison was, and then 2 in Kentucky at the Morehead State University and Kentucky School for the Blind. And after that, things exploded with regards to the 2019 and 2020 eclipses in South America. So they managed to create 20 new devices for 2019, and then they managed to create another 100, thankfully due to grants with groups in the area, including ESO and Gemini, and those were distributed all across Chile and Argentina for those 2 eclipses. And then since then, they have made in excess of 900 devices for the annular and for the total eclipse. And here's just some really great visual representations of how they can be listened to on the devices through earbuds or through large groups. So to give you an idea, there were a lot that were distributed, the vast majority of them in places like Texas, Arkansas, places that were expected to have good weather, even though we we didn't. But just a really wonderful opportunity to, much like Trey said, to speak to an environment and a group that, had not previously had accessibility to eclipses. Even data was collected that corresponded perfectly with the weather that did occur in these places. So we're hoping in the upcoming eclipses to really encourage more folks to do the data set, to be involved. One of the things I'm particularly proud of is this was kind of my idea of, well, what happens to people that can't get out to locations where LightSound devices existed? So we partnered with the American Council for the Blind and their media channel. We had 7 different locations that live streamed it over 2 hours, 2,500 people listened, and it was the largest media event that they had put on since the 2017 eclipse. So we had a lot of distribution that kind of read there. A lot of education facilities received these devices, museums, science centers, even medical facilities. A lot went to individuals that worked with the visually impaired and with the blind, and parks as well as the recreation areas. If you want to get involved, we've got some QR codes. If you already have a device that you use for the eclipse and you haven't submitted any information, we're still accepting that. And then the future of the LightSound device is actually to improve upon the design, pull some information that's already come from Orchestra, which is a means of detecting color and translating that to sound, integrating that into the future designs of the LightSound device, and even integrating some haptic feedback so that individuals that are blind or low vision but also deaf can experience future eclipses like the ones coming up in 2026 and 2027, of which Allison's going to be doing work to expand into Iceland, and is actually going to be presenting at the IAU conference in South Africa this year. So more to come, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Questions for Dawn? Okay, David.
Very good and very interesting. So I was curious, did you still encourage the people to go outside so they could feel the sunlight and the changes and all, and then correlate that to what they could then hear on the device?
So I know we definitely tried to communicate to people, even if it was, going to be cloudy, to experience all aspects of the eclipse, all the sensory elements that don't necessarily have to rely on your visual acuity. Yes.
Okay, and other things they could listen for and all that too. So very good.
And actually, there were a great many folks that we're not challenged with being blind or visually impaired, including myself, that took great use of these, and folks really found it a tremendously inclusive and interesting opportunity to be able to take what they're seeing and see how it translated to the sound as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, that you can feel even if it's cloudy is the temperature changes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Another one here? Okay. Oh, you got one from Slack? Wow, great.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, there was actually a question on Slack asking where they can find more information, so I can include this link.
Yes.
But this might be a good reminder for the other presenters that if folks were not able to attend this in person, they might still be interested in your material and you could upload it to the Slack. So, but I'll send that link to them.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I just had a comment that we have one of the instruments because we think we can use it to detect clouds for blind people.
I was actually just talking with Allison last night, and I
Okay.
told her, I said, there's a way that this could partner with Globe.
Yes.
So
Yes. So yes, we need to talk. Okay.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank
Right
you.
there, you have a great example of why these in-person meetings are so important, because of the kinds of partnerships that are created during them. Okay, we'll thank Dawn again, and we'll move on to the next one.